Hello and welcome to the Palooza Presents podcast for the week of September 23rd, 2024. My name is Mike Peluso. I am your host, and this is episode number 254. And the title of this week's episode and the title of our post of the week is Mas Tequila. Now, that's kind of a play on words because what I'm talking about in this particular episode is my experience at the Rio Tequila. It's a resort, not necessarily actual tequila, although we did drink a lot while we were at that resort, and that's why I have the Mexican tile on the image for this podcast. It's in the background with the tequila bottle in the front. But the idea here is that I learned something, or I relearned something, or I learned something that I knew but didn't really know until I experienced it. And it's all about how the rest of the world handles vacations so much better than we do here in the United States of America. We are screwing ourselves by not giving ourselves enough downtime, by not being able to enjoy life. Now, I count myself as the rare person who enjoys work. Most people I know don't enjoy work as much as I do, but they're forced to commit massive amounts of time. And I talk about that. I talk about the experience we had there, how members of our party were basically had to work even though they were on this vacation that had been planned a year in advance. They had to pop out the laptops and get stuff done because that's just the culture we have. And what it was like meeting all these people from all over the world who look at vacation very differently than we do, and how they have so much more time, hence the Mas in Mas Tequila. And they were there for a long time. They seemed like really cool people with great lives. And so I talk about that, and I talk about the things that we need to do and how I'm trying to move in that direction and the struggles that I run into because our culture is not set up for it. And that makes trying to achieve that goal of enjoying life, of having a really, truly balanced life, almost impossible. Because if nobody else is balanced, how can you be balanced? And that's the central question of today's episode. And you can hear all of my experiences, all the details, when you listen to our post of the week.
Post of the week.
Mas Tequila. I took the family to an all-inclusive. It wasn't a great all-inclusive. It was the Rio Tequila in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. The tequila is part of a compound of Rio resorts all next to each other. It wasn't the least expensive resort in the compound, but it was close. What made it a bit less desirable was that it wasn't on the beach. It was across the street from the beach. In my mind, that wasn't a problem. I was happy to trade $1,000 in savings for a short walk to the White Sands. That money went to getting a second room for my kids, so my wife and I had some privacy. Like I said, a great trade-off in my mind. I've been wanting to go to an all-inclusive for some time, and because of this, I tried to maximize my time there. I scheduled what seemed to be an impossibly long trip, 9 days. It was a great trip with lots of great experiences. One of the more unique experiences had to do with the makeup of the guests at the resort, specifically the Europeans. I didn't realize how international the Rio resorts were. I read lots of reviews and watched lots of videos on the properties before I committed. Nowhere was the demographic makeup of guests of the properties spelled out. I knew the company didn't heavily market to Americans, at least not in mainstream media channels like the Sandals brand does. I also knew it was big and it has properties all over the world. I probably should have figured it'd be mostly Europeans who vacationed there, but I was inexperienced with international resorts. Day after day, I'd see TUI tour buses bring in hundreds of guests from Europe. TUI is a multi-billion leisure and travel conglomerate that serves the European market, and it felt like half their business was bringing people to the Rio Tequila. On the positive side, the experience was very familiar. It was the proverbial cruise on land that I expected. Everyone was in a good mood, and why wouldn't they be? They were on vacation. I met a bunch of chatty people. That's when I realized that pretty universally, every European was there for 2 weeks. These were not well-to-do people. They were truck drivers and teachers and admin staff at companies. I knew that the rest of the world values leisure time more than Americans do. There's a great Planet Money episode that explains how this came to be. It's one thing to know something, yet it's another thing entirely to experience it. All of a sudden, my unbelievably long vacation that I could brag about now seemed like I was cutting myself short. To add insult to injury, my wife and my friend, who I vacation with, both had to open their laptops half of the days we were there to get work done. This vacation was planned very long in advance, yet our work environment is so driven, my wife and friend had to work while they were there. I recently aligned with the thinking of the Europeans with regards to travel. For the longest time, I put off traveling. It's comically expensive when you still have kids. Even if cost wasn't an issue, travel is physically uncomfortable because of my back issues. Then things started changing. I developed other age-related health issues. Friends my age started dying of natural causes. All that, plus looking at a calendar and accepting my advancing age, made me realize if these trends continue, I may not be able to travel at some point. So I chose to grit my teeth and get out there, even if it's physically uncomfortable. Another motivating factor is that, unlike decades past, I now have the time. I'm an educator working a traditional school year. That's 10 weeks in the summer plus other blocks of time in the year I have off. Putting the money issue aside, it is a perfectly balanced life. It's not quite work hard, play hard, which I hate, as I think that lifestyle concept is a hamster trap fostered on young and impressionable employees by high-pressure organizations in an effort to maximize productivity at the expense of said employees. It's more work and play in near perfect balance. I've even recently relearned that longer trips are better. It's easier to unwind. It reminds me of my very first cruise I took in my 20s. I chose a 7-night trip, and for the first 2 or 3 days, I recall still being high-strung and looking at the trip like work, where I had to do everything and keep a schedule, an attitude I've actually talked about in my blog. It was only by day 3 that I started to actually relax and just go with the flow, but on a 7-day cruise, this means as soon as you feel relaxed, it's time to go home with all the activity that entails. Achieving that relaxed state for longer time periods is now my focus. I think of my current vacation goal as 3 times 2. 3 trips at 2 weeks or more each. If I could afford a place on a lake or the beach, I'd maybe make that 2 plus 2 plus 4. 2 destination vacations at 2 weeks each and a month at my lake or beach place. So I've just vented about American leisure values. That's all well and good, but for an American, it's like shouting into the wind. Virtually everyone has truncated vacation schedules, and that's not going to change anytime soon. So if I want to travel, the question becomes, who can I go with? As the Ryu experience showed, my friends and family with traditional jobs can't get away easily. My wife has jumped through hoops to work remotely for several of our trips. But a working spouse isn't all that much fun, as you can't do things together during the workday. I have some school friends who have the same time off as me, but they have spouses who aren't big fans of them leaving. A few others who could go away for extended trips aren't really in my circle. I could go by myself and make contacts on Facebook. That sort of worked. I could look into travel clubs for solo travelers. Like my friends' spouses, my wife isn't a big fan of that either. I could take one of my kids, but our schedules don't quite align for the summer. Speaking of kids, my teen doesn't want to travel. His friends are here, his digital screens are here, and more importantly, his part-time job and the social outlet it provides is here. It's a conundrum that I frankly haven't figured out the solution to. I do know I'm committed to not sticking around if I can travel. Even if I do, the money thing is another issue I have to navigate. Of course, my time off comes at the most expensive season of the year to travel. But this article is more about time than money. Even if I don't have the answer for myself, I do have some ideas on how we can fix this in America. Technically, we could mandate 6 weeks paid vacation like other parts of the world. That will never happen in the current political environment. Even if it did, our culture is one of work. You'd have to have a use it or pay it with penalty structure. What I mean by that is the laws have to be structured so that it incentivizes actual paid time off for employees. If employees take paid vacation, they are good. If they didn't take vacation, the company would have to pay out the unused vacation money and something like a 10 or 20% tax on top if the employee doesn't take time off. Over time, I can see where this would change the culture just like it did in other parts of the world. Of course, there would have to be legislation that enforces employees being completely off without employers forcing them to work while they are on vacation. But what about the people who are enculturated to work, of which, to be clearly honest, I am one? Cultural change is hard, and it was very hard for me to change my mindset. I know from personal experience, these people will resent being forced to take time off. The world does vacations better than we do. I want to do vacations like the rest of the world, and I've structured my life to do so. Unfortunately, because I live here in America, I'm pretty much alone in this. This problem is only going to get more complicated as the years go by and the kids get older, at least while they live with us. This is a problem I would like to overcome, but as I said, there are no easy solutions. I'm going to keep working on this as I do feel that clock ticking, and I know that the day will come where I won't be able to travel like I have in the past. For now, it's like a ground war, where I have to figure out different social logistics for every single trip. Thinking about it, maybe the solution is right here in this article. I should just take my next few trips over to Europe. That way I can make some new friends. The best part is I know they will have the time to travel with me. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Peluso Presents podcast. You can follow the Peluso Presents efforts via Twitter @PelusoPresents, on Facebook, on Medium.com, just search for Mike Peluso, on LinkedIn, and of course on the blog located at www.pelusopresents.com. You can email us directly via peluso@outlook.com. This podcast is available on all major podcast services, including iTunes, Google Play Music, or your podcast service of choice. We love and appreciate any comments and reviews you wish to leave. Please remember to support this effort by sharing and liking the postings on all your social media. If you'd like to support this effort more directly, you can via patreon.com/Peluso Presents. Thank you for listening, following, sharing, and for your support. We appreciate it.